The other day I was looking at my bookshelves and it dawned on me that a lot of the books that I own don't really represent the reader I am today. So I figured it was time to do a huge book on haul. I'm actually very excited to be getting rid of these books because that means I'm making space for new books. And by getting rid of books, I simply mean that I'm either going to be selling these on Mercari so I can try to make some of the money back that I spent on them, or I'll be donating them to little neighborhood libraries. There's actually a little neighborhood library right next to where we take my son to the playground. I feel like it's perfect. The next time I take him to the playground, I can drop some books off at the local neighborhood library. Also, one more thing and then I'll shut up and we'll dive right into this book on haul. Some of the books might look familiar from my last on haul video because I actually never got around getting rid of them because we moved, but now I'm determined to actually get rid of them, especially with 2025 around the corner. I'm just in the mood to get rid of anything that doesn't serve me, books included. The first book that I'm getting rid of, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I don't understand the hype with this book. I mean, it went viral, I want to say 2 years ago, and people were talking about it everywhere. I don't really see a lot of people talking about it now, but I found it boring and it really pissed me off how many times the author mentioned that the main character was short. I'm never going to read it again, so why am I holding on to it? Getting rid of it. Up next, we have Miss the Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. I'm a huge fan of Lynn Painter's YA romances. For some reason, her adult romances just don't hit. I remember reading this book and thinking it was kind of cringy and not loving it. I think I ended up giving this a 3-star rating. It wasn't terrible. Like, I've definitely read worse books than this one, but it wasn't very memorable and I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. So yeah, time to get rid of it. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I actually ended up giving this book 5 stars and I remember bawling my eyes out when I read this the first time. I never watched the movie, just I don't know why, I just never watched it. I really enjoyed the writing, but 1, I don't think I'm ever going to read it again, and 2, I found out that the author has been involved in some shady stuff over the years, so I don't want to continue to support this author. It's time to go. I feel like a lot of you are going to be upset with me for getting rid of these 2 books, but I am getting rid of, oh my god, why am I dropping everything? I'm getting rid of Red Queen and Glass Sword. Both are by Victoria Aveyard. Red Queen, if I remember correctly, is the first book in the Red Queen series and Glass Sword is the second book. I read Red Queen a couple years ago. I was pretty bored with it. I felt like the ending was very predictable. It is a YA fantasy, so a lot of the characters are on the younger side, which is not typically my favorite, but I decided to give it a second chance because so many of you guys were telling me that the books get better. I ended up buying Glass Sword and I feel lied to. Glass Sword was so incredibly boring to me. I've DNF'd this book like a million times and by the last time I simply said, you know what, no more. Clearly I'm not into this book, so why am I forcing myself to read it? I DNF'd it, I want to say halfway through and nothing was happening. I was so bored with the characters, so bored with the betrayal of the first book. I was so over it. So I'm getting rid of these 2 books. I'll probably end up putting these 2 books in the little neighborhood library to see if anyone picks them up because a lot of people love this series. I'm just not one of them. Next up, we have The Naturalist by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I actually really enjoyed this book, but I ended up reading the entire series through Libby, and I don't want to buy the physical versions of the book because I didn't love them that much to actually own them, and because I don't like just owning one book out of a series, I'm going to end up selling this or giving it away, even though I actually really did enjoy it. It's a really good YA like mystery slash thriller type of book. If you like Criminal Minds, then you'll really enjoy this book and this series because it's basically a YA Criminal Minds. It's really good. I just read it through Libby and I don't think I'm going to buy, well, I know I won't buy the physical versions of the books, so why hold on to just one, you know? If I'm going to have a series, I want the entire series, not just one. You know what I mean? This book is one of those books that I keep saying I'm going to get rid of and I end up keeping it for some reason. This one is probably also going to the neighborhood library. It's 7 Dirty Secrets by Natalie D. Richards. This book was so incredibly boring. It was so predictable. I did not enjoy the writing whatsoever, so it's going away. One Day in December by Josie Silver. This is a holiday romance that I found incredibly really boring, and I honestly don't know why I still own it, so time to get rid of it. Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is the sequel to When in Rome. I did not enjoy this book at all. It was trying too hard to be clean while also hinting at a little bit of spice. It just didn't work for me. It's time to say goodbye. Even though I really like the cover, I think the cover is so pretty. Not enough for me to keep it though. Next up we have A Country Affair by Debbie Macomber. This book was written, I want to say, in the early 2000s, and I could tell from the get-go that it was written in the early 2000s. When I bought this book, I just saw that the copyright was from 2021, so I assumed it was from 2021. If I read a little bit further down, wait, I'm sorry, it was actually published in 1990, so it's very outdated. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with reading books from the 90s. A lot of good books were from that decade, but this one had a lot of tropes that I do not vibe with. Some of the tropes in here felt very icky to me, and I couldn't see past that. I don't even think I read the entire thing. I think I got maybe 100 pages deep, and it just felt so gross to me that I couldn't get into the romance or get into the book whatsoever. Didn't like the male main character. It was so sketchy and just, ugh, I feel like I wasted my time reading it, which sucks when you feel like that as a reader. Definitely getting rid of that one. I have two holiday romances here. I have The Santa Suit by Mary Kate Andrews. This is more of a novella. Didn't really love it. I was pretty bored through the entire thing. I honestly can't tell you what this book was about. I mean, I can tell you what this book was about, but I don't really remember exactly what happened. And I remember thinking that it was very meh. So yeah, I'm not keeping that. And then we have Something from Tiffany's by Melissa Hill. I bought this book because I'm obsessed with Tiffany's, like what girl isn't? And I love the cover, but it turned out to be very boring. The book was so slow. I really couldn't connect with the romance or the characters. Thought I would keep it because I really like the cover, but honestly, I'm just gonna get rid of it. Then we have The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This is a Friends to Lovers. I think this was the first Sarah Adams book that I read, and I'm not a fan of Friends to Lovers. When I bought this, I didn't realize that I wasn't a fan of that trope. I realized it. When did I realize I wasn't a fan of Friends to Lovers? I think I finally realized that I wasn't a fan of Friends to Lovers when I read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Is that by Christina Lauren? I remember hating that book while everyone else was raving about it, and I think it's because it was Friends to Lovers. Yeah, this book just wasn't for me. Another book that wasn't for me is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Snooze Fest. I am so sorry if you enjoyed this book. I love the cover. I think the cover is absolutely beautiful, but I hated reading this book. Literally, I wanted to throw this book across the room so many times. It was just so boring. I'm sorry if that's one of your favorites. Then we have the Selection series. Well, the first three books in the Selection series by Kiera Cass. I actually really liked these books when I read them, but while I was reading them, I knew that the writing was trash. I feel like I'm being really mean in this video. The writing wasn't trash. This book is written for a young teen, and I read them when I was, I want to say, how old was I? Maybe 26, 27. I don't remember exactly how old I was. The writing is very addicting. Like, I read them back to back with no stopping, and I enjoyed it because, again, the writing was so addicting. I don't know how to explain it. Like, the writing was addicting, and I wanted to find out what was going to happen, but as I was reading, I knew that the writing wasn't all that great and that I wasn't the target demographic for these books, which is fine. But I don't think I'm ever going to read them again. I have no interest in continuing the rest of the books in the series, so I might as well give them away and let someone else enjoy them, you know? For Her Consideration by Amy Spalding. This is a book that if I remember correctly, I gave it 2 stars. I didn't like the third act conflict in this book, or the third act breakup. I thought it was very unnecessary, and I just didn't really like the main character. I felt she was very like, who is me? Everything bad happens to me. I have no friends. No one cares about me, while having a full group of friends. This book just wasn't for me, so that's all I have for that one. Okay, I feel like I'm going to hurt a lot of feelings with this series, and if I do, I'm so sorry. I didn't hate this series, but I didn't love it either. It is the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. I think there's a Netflix show based on these books now. I read them a couple years ago and I thought the first one was okay. Didn't really understand the hype. Loved the second one. If I remember correctly, I think I gave the second one almost a 5-star rating. Loved it. And then the third book just ruined the series for me. I did not like the third book whatsoever. So I think it's time to just get rid of it. You know, I'm never going to read this series again. I don't look at it with fondness. Don't love it. So why hold on to it, you know? Then we have Still Life by Louise Penny. I actually never read this book. I think I read the first couple chapters and I was so bored. You know, I hate giving away a book without actually reading it first, so I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if you read this book and if you think I should read it. I think I tried reading this last November and I just couldn't do it. Then we have Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I love Alice Feeney, but this book just missed the mark for me. I don't like the characters. There was one specific scene that I remember vividly that I think shouldn't have been included in the book. I don't think it added anything and it just felt gross to me. Getting rid of it. I'm trying to go really fast because my son is currently napping and I don't have that much time to film today. So I'm not really giving you guys a synopsis. I'm sorry if people give synopsis during these videos. I'm basically just telling you why I'm getting rid of them. I feel like it's more fun that way. If you want to know what these books are about, you can always look them up. But I feel like a lot of these books are popular, so you might already know what they're about. So why waste time explaining them, you know? Next up, we have House of Salt and Sours. I can never pronounce that word. This is by Erin A. Craig. This is a YA fantasy. It's inspired by the 12 Dancing Princesses, if I remember correctly. I've never actually read that fairy tale before, so I didn't really like connect the two together until I started looking up this book because it did feel fairy tale-esque. I couldn't figure out which fairy tale it was based on until I looked it up and I realized, wait, I never actually read that fairy tale before. But I didn't really enjoy this book. I love the ambiance, I love the setting, but I didn't really like the plot all that much. Time to say bye. Then we have Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. You know, I don't really get the hype with this series. I know it's beloved here on YouTube and on TikTok, but I just couldn't get into it. It's a little too toxic for me. When I read a book, I kind of want to disappear in the world and like take a break from all the negativity that's happening in our world. And I feel like this one was just a little too toxic for me. I know that the books get better. That's what everyone keeps telling me. It's just not for me. So I'm going to get rid of it. Next up, we have a bunch of Colleen Hoover books. And if you've been following my channel from day one, since I started talking about books, then you would know Colleen Hoover was one of the authors that got me back into reading. And I'm not getting rid of her books because it's kind of popular to hate on her now. I'm actually just getting rid of her books because I think I've outgrown them as a reader. I think Colleen Hoover is a really good writer if you are getting back into reading or you just like her type of book. I hate when people are like, oh, you like Colleen Hoover? You have horrible reading taste. Like, who cares? If you like a particular author, that's fine. If you like to read certain books, that's fine. Everyone has different reading tastes. I don't think we should make fun of each other or think less of a person because they like a specific genre, specific author. Who cares? Just read what you like, read what you love. Nothing else matters. The reason why I'm getting rid of the majority of my Colleen Hoover collection is because, like I said, I feel like I've outgrown her writing. I don't really like these types of romances anymore. I've gotten really into dark romances this past year and like mafia romances. So again, these romances that I have here are just not the vibe that I'm going for. So why waste space? I think I own every Colleen Hoover book out there, except for a couple of her novellas. I just never felt the need to buy them. But I own the majority of her books, if not all of her books. I am keeping the Slam series because I remember reading them and I think I gave each book 5 stars. I should probably read them to see if I still like them. And then there was another book that I'm keeping from her. Oh, I'm keeping Layla and I'm keeping Verity because I remember really enjoying those books. And I feel like I still would enjoy Verity if I read it today. But the books that I have here are books that I did not enjoy or that were kind of meh. I'm just gonna go through them really quickly. So we have It Ends With Us, which started my Colleen Hoover obsession, I guess. I feel like this book started everyone's obsession with Colleen Hoover. It Ends With Us, and then I'm also getting rid of It Starts With Us. This is the sequel to, obviously, It Ends With Us. I remember reading It Ends With Us, and I think I gave it 4 stars, but I didn't really understand the hype. I think I had read one other book from her first. Is it Verity? I think I read Verity or the Slam series first, and I enjoyed those books more than I enjoyed It Ends With Us. I remember reading It Starts With Us and I thought it was a decent sequel, but again, these books just don't represent me as a reader anymore, and I don't see myself ever rereading these books. I think in my reading blog for It Ends With Us, I mentioned that I was never going to reread that book again in my life, so why am I holding on to it, you know? Then Hopeless, didn't like this book. I thought the main character was very toxic, had red flags everywhere. Confess, I was bored. Maybe someday. It has a cheating trope if I remember correctly, and I hate that trope so much. So yeah. Heartbones, I think I was pretty bored with this book as well. I thought it was meh. Didn't really see the hype with this one, although I do think the cover is really pretty. Without Merit, another book that's very addicting. I feel like all of Colleen Hoover's books are very addicting and you just want to keep reading them to find out what's going to happen. Then once you finish them, you're like, I don't think I enjoyed that. That's Without Merit for me. Too Late, didn't really like it. All Your Perfects actually never got past the first 100 pages. I think I bought this book when I had just found out that I was pregnant with my son, and there is a miscarriage trope in this book, and I remember being so afraid of losing my baby those first couple months that I just could not see or read anything that involved miscarriages or stillborns or anything that could possibly go wrong with a pregnancy. I stayed clear from, and then I just never really felt the need to go back and read it. Never. Another book that I just thought was okay, not a book that I'm ever going to reread again, so why keep it? There you have it. These are all the books that I'll be getting rid of. I'll probably sell the majority of these on Mercari. If you're interested, I'll be selling them for super cheap, probably $5 a piece, maybe less. And then I'll also be donating some of them, maybe not the Colleen Hoover ones. I'm excited to make space on my bookshelves. That way I can start 2025 fresh and we can go bookshelving. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I have been very MIA in 2024 when it comes to bookish content. Honestly, I've been MIA on YouTube for 2024 in its entirety. I've just been really focused on being a mom, being a wife, being a UGC creator, content creator, that I haven't really had time left in my day to focus on YouTube. I do want to get back to talking about books in the new year, and I still read all the time. If you follow me on Goodreads, then you know that I'm constantly updating the books that I read. I'm rating them. I just haven't sat down in a hot minute to actually talk about books with you guys, but I definitely want to get back into that. I just need to figure out how. There's just not enough time in the day for me to do everything I need to do. Hopefully in 2025, I have a little bit more time to get back into YouTube. Again, hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you on my channel. We're so close to 30,000, which is insane to me. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.